Hi everyone, this is Killshot 99 Gaming. This is The Walking Dead Season 9, Daryl's Dark Side. What a week of chat, what a week of conversation. Been absolutely incredible. We've analyzed a lot of different topics, and it wouldn't be a complete week going into episode number 2 without having a little bit of Daryl conversation, because I do think he's going to be a big part of what goes on. You guys know some of the spoilers. We will touch on just some spoiler hints, not the full gambit of spoilers we talked about a couple days ago, but we do know that Daryl has some physical fisticuffs this week, so we are going to talk about that. I want to thank everybody for being here. I saw a nice crowd waiting for us for the introduction of this video. So before we get too far into it, do want to give a shout out to, we got a super chat, Valar saying hello 99 Army, Kill, Steph, Kells, Emmy, Sweet Tommy, sponsors, patrons, and of course all the super chatters. And let's jump right into it. A lot of good stuff going down this week. And I did also pose a question to several of the Patreons today, and it had to do with Negan. So I'm going to chime in with some Negan information and some thoughts around Negan as we get into the Daryl chat as well. So Daryl's personality is something that we are going to scrutinize this season. So Daryl, we know it's going to be much, much more dialogue. And I think that's going to be important because we always see Daryl through his actions. You know, he helps the underdog. He's known to help the underdog. But we're starting to learn a little bit more about him. He's been watching, observing, taking some things in. It's probably a lot of stuff he's disagreed with, but he just kind of goes off to his own. He doesn't, get too political with the decisions that are being made. But when things are desperate, he is the type of person that will step up, and you can count on him. He's very passionate, and I think one of the things we saw last season showed how passionate he was he wanted to take the explosives and blow up the sanctuary, and he and Rick had a little bit of a throwdown. And then Daryl's like, you know what, I'll just take care of it myself. And then he loads up the truck and goes and does it. Michonne wasn't a big fan of that. Rosita wasn't a fan of that, but Daryl went through with it anyway. I think we learned a little bit more at the end of the season where Daryl's definitely Team Maggie right now. Julius is still traumatized over the governor and Glenn's death. I think he's traumatized from being locked in a cell eating dog food sandwiches. So Daryl has had a very, very rough time, and plus listening to Easy Street over and over again is that'll wreck anybody. I do have a couple thoughts that I think Daryl could come into play. I'm going to save a little bit of that toward the end of this video as we get further and further into it. A couple bullet points that we will check. But Daryl and the relationship with, or lack of relationship with Negan, I think is big. Daryl completely disagrees. But here's what's seems to be a little bit different. So Maggie will apparently not go back to Alexandria. It looks like Daryl has been to Alexandria, has been to the Sanctuary, has been to Hilltop. So even though Negan is locked up, one would assume that Daryl's been there at least a couple times. Probably not to talk to him, not to have any interaction with him, but he definitely knows of his existence. And, once again, Daryl's just been bottling all that up inside. So I want to ask the group this question. Last week when you saw Daryl, Rick almost, friend to friend, brother to brother said, need some help, need you to come back to Alexandria. And he said, I'm going to go back to Hilltop and check on Maggie. What were your thoughts with that? Intentional slight? I mean, does Daryl want to go there? Or was Daryl really telling Rick, like, it's best you and I just take a little break from each other? Want to see some of the thoughts here. If it is that he feels like he's got to get there and help protect Maggie and the baby, or just upset with Rick's decision making right now. Shane, like Daryl was just like, screw it, right? Because, he could have had it both ways. He could have said, you know what, Rick, I'll be back, no problem. But I do want to check on something real quick. But the way he said it, did show a little bit of animosity. So JB, and I get what you're saying. So JB says still feels responsible for Glenn's death. I think that storyline, I mean, it's there, but it has been probably, let's see, if there's a year and a half time skip and a couple months between that happening and where they were at the end of the season. It's been like probably going on 2 years. So yeah, he may still feel guilty, but I don't know that that's the underlying factor. I don't know that that's the big thing. I think more to the point with Daryl, and he said it, he sees too much revolt. Too much, you ask somebody to do something and they don't do it. They just give you pushback. Hey, can you take care of this? We're out of paint. No, just find a way to do it. Get it done. You don't get a lot. You didn't get a lot of that when the group was smaller. And Daryl even said as much. He said, when it was just the small group, that's when it was right. So Chosen One says Daryl feels he swore an oath to Maggie. Has to be there to look over him. And Tracy, I think you're right. I think where we have criticized Maggie's decision making, there's a good parallel, because I think Rick's decision making is just as bad as Maggie's, but for different reasons. And the voice of reason is going to stand out in a situation like this, because Rick is way too nice, too global, to everything's just going to work out. He's really believing that they're going to be picking strawberries with Negan one day. Whereas Maggie is local. She doesn't have the global view. She's, whatever happens in Hilltop, we're growing food for ourselves. We're going to take care of ourselves. We'll make weapons for ourselves. We got a blacksmith. We got a doctor. I mean, it's all of those things that, why worry about anybody else? So both could be right and both could be wrong. It really depends on which side of the street you want to stand on at this point. So I discussed something, and maybe, I guess we could call it a prediction, a while back. But we did a video on it. We talked about it. I think it might have been a live stream. But Carol and Ezekiel, and we're going to find out this week that Carol has grown very fond of Henry, very protective. And we've heard spoilers that Daryl gets a dog. But I do have to ask, is it possible that Daryl takes an interest in being a mentor to Henry? Think about that for a second. We talked about some of the reasons why this could happen. And you know how, like, when people are growing up and, whatever age you are, 12, 13, 14, and you see that person that's a little bit older that might be smoking or doing something. Maybe they're smoking, drinking, who knows. And then you're at that age where you're, like, curious about what it is that they're doing, and they're that bad influence. I'm just wondering if, because of Daryl's toughness, if Henry might be sort of idolizing Daryl. Just something to think about for a future story. What's up, Clown Dust? Thanks for being here. And we did ask this the other night about the, the situation with Justin. And I don't think it would be Daryl and Henry. I think that would be a separate story to happen a little bit later on. But if Justin leaves and Justin is killed by someone, and let's say it's not the Whisperers, possible that Daryl has some assistance, that Daryl has a partner, maybe Daryl and Tara. I mean, Tara's got a dark side. It's possible that Daryl and Tara are the two people that kill Justin. Or do you guys just really, really think it's just going to be the Whispers? I don't think it's Carol. And Ron, I'd have to see a little bit more for it to be Daryl and Henry. I wouldn't have a problem with it being Daryl and Henry. Kind of like a makeshift father-son killing duo. But if it were to be Daryl and Henry, I think there'd have to be a little bit of, maybe not backstory, but just a little bit of seeing them interact. So, Mike, you're positive it's the Whispers. You just no doubt about it. I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing. We did talk about it yesterday. So Carol says, I'm sorry, not Carol. Crystal, the singer chick, says, I cannot see anyone in the group being an all-out murderer. You know, I think if you're willing to slap somebody in the face with an iron skillet, that's like on the verge of murder. Funny thing about made for television, I think most people that get slapped in the face with a skillet, I mean, there's a good chance those people can die and not get up from it, even though Justin's a big dude. It would be. I agree. I think it would be a good way to introduce the Whisper storyline, see them a little bit earlier. Shane says someone unexpected. Well, I'm not saying that it couldn't be, one of these lovers, but there are a lot of relationships coming into play. And I don't see Ezekiel, Carol out there, hunting Justin down. They got business to attend to. Ann, Father G, unlikely. Jerry, new relationship. There's a lot of relationships going on. It absolutely is supposed to be scary and vicious. So, Drama King, that's a bold prediction. Sherry and Dwight as Whisperers. I know that's a bold stance, and, we'll get back to Daryl in 1 second. Could Dwight be that bitter, scared, no chance of coming back? And that's a tough story because there's a lot of people that want Dwight to come in and save the day and to help out. And I do think, I think Dwight's story is different. I think Dwight will be the person to save Eugene and Rosita. And I don't know. I mean, Sherry could be alive. She might be out there on the run. Maybe she's involved with the Whispers. But if we don't see Sherry for 5 years, that's a long time to be out there surviving. The time skips really, really do make it challenging. Right, Shane? And see, that's what we've heard from most of the viewers, is that people have went through so much to forgive Dwight, it's going to be hard to hate him again. It's like, Dwight was bad, people didn't like him, and then they sort of justified him, and then he had to do enough stuff to be accepted, then he helped the group out, then Daryl kicks him out and says, go find her. So Dwight, really, his goal is to find Sherry. Yeah, I think that's a little much. I mean, we're known for some bold predictions, but that might even put some of my bold predictions. That might challenge those. We had a pretty intense debate last night about what it would take for Negan to kind of be in the good graces of the viewers and to transition his role on the show. So, and you'll probably see a video this weekend I'm going to put together, but I did want to touch on it, and I did want to acknowledge a couple of the patrons that we have too. And one of the questions that I posed to the patrons, and I'm going to ask you, and this will tie into Daryl, so we won't get too far away from it. Finish this phrase. Negan regrets. And I'm going to read a couple of the comments from some of the patrons a little bit earlier. And it was that simple. So Whitney Hernandez says, not killing Rick would probably be at the top of the list. Diane Estes says, how he treated his wife. Jason the Mixologist says, how Simon handled Jadis's people. Eric Beach also said treatment of his wife. Deborah Cox putting all his faith in his bullet maker. That's really good. Walking Dead nerd giving Sherry and Dwight a second chance and trusting them. Deborah Johnson says nothing. And Villar says, quite simply, being Negan. And of all those comments, I was really fishing for something here. So Sherry Bentley says Negan regrets nothing. Ron Burgundy says Negan regrets nothing. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to openly disagree with both of you. And I'm going to take a fairly strong stance on this. I think a major storyline this season is going to see the psychological and emotional struggle of Negan, of being locked up. And the question, it was kind of it was a setup anyway. In order for Negan to change, and I think some of you might be looking at this from the wrong perspective. So Isola says not killing Daryl. I don't think Negan's going to regret any of those things. In fact, I think Negan's going to regret killing Glenn. I think Negan's going to regret ruling the way he ruled. I don't think Negan is going to regret letting someone live that he's going to need a little bit later on. Even something like losing. I don't think Negan's going to regret losing. I think you're going to see a total breakdown and a rebuilding of his character. And I don't have this as a confirmed spoiler yet, so it'll be just a super bold prediction. But I think part of, we talked about the different layers and what it's going to take for people to accept Negan, and some of it was the backstory. Right? Some people said, if we see a little bit of backstory, we may sympathize with him. We may empathize with him. If we see a little bit of Rick offering forgiveness and offering and saving Negan, then that might transpire as well. But somewhere between those two things, somewhere between a possible Negan talking about a backstory, a little bit of a backstory, and Rick maybe laying his life on the line, I think is the jail cell. And I think if you start where you hear Negan take on this tough role, and the more he talks to Rick, but then I think, who's the voice of wisdom on the show right now? Everybody chime in. There's one person, we've talked about it for 3 straight days now. Who's the most level-headed, most wise person on the show? It's Michonne. There you go. So when Rick comes in and talks to Negan, I think Negan's going to play the tough role. When Michonne goes in and says, "Eat and I'll be back," and Negan actually gets her to sit down and talk to him, you might see this guy cry like a baby. You might see him absolutely lose it and break down. I think there's going to be an emotional bond between Negan and Michonne. I think she's going to understand him. She ain't going to like it. But I think she's going to allow him to vent and to talk and to open up and probably talk about this snowball effect that became him. Well, it's going to happen, Viola. I mean, they're setting it up perfectly, but let me take it a step further. Because one of the things from the lineup, and I gotta tie this in between who Negan was and who Negan is. Now, I do not like the Glenn thing. But I want you to sort of put yourself in, know it's going to be tough. Put yourself in Negan's position. Negan has assembled a group of just ruffians. They are they're from all over the place. Now, look, they're the workers. But if you remember the lineup, and I'm not trying to justify the lineup, but I'm gonna emotionally go through a little bit of it with you. Was there a part of Negan that had to posture, that had to overdo it, to have to find a way to invoke and instill fear in some of the baddest people left on this earth? I mean, there were some big people watching that lineup with some crazy weapons. And if Negan does not intimidate, how does he keep that group of people that could snap at any second, how does he keep them in check? And I've went through this. So as a fan, hate the Glenn scene. But many of you have brought this up. The letter of the law. Now, I wished he would have killed Abraham and said, and said some harsh words and packed it up and, been really rude and just left. But he didn't. Instead, he hung around, and once he hung around, the conversation started. He put the bat in Rosita's face, and at that point, he started the next thing. So, yes, he definitely could have. He could have left at that point. And to me, that would have been good story, and that would have kept all of these, this rough group of travelers that he's assembled, probably doesn't even know them all. And let me tell you how we learn that. How we learn how truly evil this group was. We didn't know it at the time, because the only things that we knew is what we saw. Right? I mean, we saw Daryl, Sasha, Abraham. We saw them confronted by the first group of bikers. And that, that was enough. But when we got to the lineup, we saw a little bit more. We saw their firepower. But I don't think it was until Negan started to tell us more about Simon. When we found out all the stuff that Simon did when Negan said, "Are we going to backslide again?" And we realized it was probably Simon that killed all the men at Oceanside and killed all the people that were with Jadis. So it took that, I think, for me to kind of go back and realize, like, wait a minute. This is a group that Negan had to keep in check. And he thought that, look, you can't negotiate, you can't, buddy up to some of these people. You got to keep them all. And that's the way he thought he was leading. Whether that was the right way or the wrong way, we'll never know because we weren't in that situation. However, I do think there's a lot of backstory that we never saw. There were a lot of groups that Negan intimidated besides his own group. And if he were to be in that jail cell, if he were to start opening up about some of these situations, I do think it might not be for forgiveness, but it will lessen the impact to the audience. Jimmy's jamming with a super chat, says, "Hi, Kills. Steph, Tommy, Kel, Emmy, and all of the 909. Sorry I'm late. Have to play catch up." Hey, just make sure, Jimmy, that you watch a little bit of the playback. Ziglet, I absolutely. I see your point. Negan has taken it to an extreme. And it wasn't just the intimidation. It was the womanizing. It was the other things that he allowed to happen. There's no doubt that he's culpable, that he's involved in this. But doesn't that kind of make the guilt worse? Doesn't that kind of make the regret worse? Right, Karen? And Karen says, yeah, he's just gross. But the more evil he was, the more regret that we're liable to see. And the more emotion and regret we're liable to see, the more likely I think we are to give him a pass. And I do think that we'll see some moments of weakness with Negan. But this still has to be done the right way. It's still... And I think it has to be done with the right person as well. And it's doubtful to me, at least in the beginning, that he's just going to open up to Rick. I think we're going to see it when he starts to starve himself. We're going to see it when he starts to get completely hopeless, and we're going to see it, I think, when he opens up. I think he will open up to Michonne. Remember, a lot of what they talked about, and this is from the writers, so I'm not just basing all this on, the fact that I think Negan's totally going to change, and many of you don't. But Angela Kang has said we will see a different side of Negan this season. Well, if we've seen the bad side and she says we'll see a different side, then we can probably expect a nicer side or a regretful side. We've also heard Scott Gimple say that we will see people paired together and working together that we haven't typically seen in the past. Well, one of those we know is going to be Arat and Rosita. But I do think that could be the Father G Negan dynamic. It could be Michonne and Negan. And he has to rebuild that trust. Lamar, that's a good point as well. And I think, if we have, like we said, if we have layers and this regret is the layer, then that's like subplot A and then 1A down below it could exactly be Michonne coming in and saying, hey, read this. Where she articulates what Carl wanted. I think that's an excellent point. Why not let that's going to just further add to the guilt. Well, she started reading to him, and then he smashed his walkie-talkie. I think there's. Casey, we'll have to go back and see. I don't think she got through. I don't remember how much of the letter she got through, to be honest with you. I just remember the reaction. So what can Negan do while locked up? I'll throw this question out to the group. I'm not saying he should be out on work release and helping to grow crops, but he is eating. He is exhausting their resources. He is like a living statue of what you don't want to be, and he's not adding any other value. And it has been a year and a half. So what things can you see Negan do that he would start to rebuild his character for the characters on the show and possibly for some of you? I agree. Shane, I think an apology. I agree, Casey. I mean, we don't know how he's maintained his sanity. Old soul, follow someone else. Dave, kill Alpha is definitely on the list of things to do, but we're talking about way before. Denise says babysit Judith. Well, he already has the support of some of the saviors. I mean, there are people out there still saying we're Negan. Jimmy says he can get him again by showing that he has a humble side. Well, Jimmy, that's the thing. And in talking to several of the viewers, people that participate in the streams, there's a good percentage that says Negan doesn't have a humble side. So it certainly is something they're going to need to work to create. So that will take us to the jail cell. So Negan has been in the jail cell. Some sanity, some strategy, all of the above. Who lets him out and or either intentionally or unintentionally? Julie, I kind of like that, but I was trying to have a connection of why Michonne would do that. I like it. I absolutely like that Michonne would trust him when no one else did and give him a chance to sort of earn his stripes. Would Michonne have that much confidence in Negan after talking to him? Could she trust him that much? I know she is the voice of reason, but that's a heck of a lot of trust to unlock the cell and say, hey, go get some fresh air, see what it's like. Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with that, but you know what? Here's something that I want you to consider. What if there's another way? Maybe he just, over time, kept some bits and pieces, whatever, found a way to pick the lock. And in one of these conversations, think of the power of this or the impact. Where, if he's talking to Michonne and talking about building trust, and she's there, and the gate's just unlocked, and he just opens it up and says, I mean, to me, a story like that would show that he can be trusted. I don't know if it'll happen like that, but, imagine Michonne comes back 3 or 4 times, and the whole time he's like, I could have escaped the whole time. And it takes a little bit of that comic book story arc. I know it's not the big, reveal, the big surprise, But I don't think, no matter what Negan does, if it's one singular act, I don't think the people that are anti-Negan are going to like him. So to me, it definitely has to be ongoing and important and impactful. The big act is going to be like, that's just the final little talking point to say, okay, yes, he did this, he didn't escape, he's not causing any problems, and then, and he did this, and then it's like the last thing's going to be the thing I'm finally going to say, fine, you win. Bring him over, let him help us fight. We need him now. A savior freeing him, you got to imagine he's under pretty tight surveillance. I mean, there's only so many people that Rick's going to allow to come and go. I mean, they're not going to just take any savior and say, hey, go give Negan a sandwich. I mean, they don't trust him. At least Rick doesn't trust him. Yeah, I mean, Steph, that does still have the potential of the fire, but I think there's going to be something to build up to the fire. So, for example, let's say the fire happens in episode 3. What are you going to do with Negan the rest of the time? Because I think that's too soon to happen, and I don't think they're just going to kind of keep him out of the cell. I feel like there's going to be staged freedom and then either an exit, but if there's a fire and he takes him out of that and then they clean up all the gasoline or whatever and then they put him back in there, then we're back to where we started from. I think that's just a lot of back and forth. And the reason we've spent some extensive time talking about Negan is because at some point there's going to be a Daryl Negan partnership. It has to happen. They have to team up to fight the Whisperers. And these scenarios about how it's going to take place have to do with Daryl going to that dark side and gradually making his way back, Negan being at the dark side, and then gradually getting to that common ground. And I'm going to touch on that 1 second. Jimmy's jamming with a super chat. Jimmy says, wouldn't it be funny if they'd pulled an Eastman on him and never really locked a cell? I know it's a big stretch of imagination, but really, I'm just saying he's got a human side. I think with Negan, the cell is locked. They don't even, Jimmy, they don't even give saviors weapons. So I do think they don't want him running around. And it's not a means to trick him. I just think it's a stronger possibility that he finds a way to unlock it. But then the question is going to come up, is he under 24-hour surveillance? Are there guards there? And if the cell's unlocked, it's not like he's probably walking around. If he does find a way to open it, I don't think he's roaming around at midnight. I just think somebody's going to see him, that they got to have guard duty. But who knows? I mean, it has been a year and a half, right? I mean, a year and a half, somebody could be lured away from their post. Jason, I have to tell you, I did not notice chains on him, but I'm not saying that's not possible. I mean, I remember seeing the scene of him standing up talking to Michonne. But I can definitely go back and kind of see if he was chained as well. I don't remember him being chained. I mean, it's a good point. It's definitely something we'll look into. We'll look into it before the next stream. So, right before the last super chat, we're starting to discuss a potential Negan Daryl partnership. Now we know they've got great real life chemistry. They actually have very good chemistry on the show as well. I mean, as much as we probably didn't like I'm gonna get me my Daryl back, there were some pretty good scenes between Negan and Daryl. Now, if you were probably some scenes you didn't like to see as a big fan of Daryl, but I still think there was a pretty good dynamic there. And also think that's some regret that Negan is going to have, that torture. Well, keep in mind, Daryl betraying Maggie, it's going to be a little bit different because Maggie's not going to be there. Maggie's gone. I think it's a fair question to ask, and we'll throw it out there for the group. We have asked this before, but, you know, the audience does mix it up a little bit from time to time. And I'm interested to kind of get a percentage, or at least a feel or feedback. If any of you are Alexandria Survivor A, well, you're generic. We're not even going to give you a name because it'll vary too much if I say you're Rosita, you're Eugene. If you are Alexandria Survivor A, and Negan has been locked up for a year and a half, you know what he used to be, but you've heard rumors that maybe there's a little bit of a change, but he hasn't hurt anybody. And half a mile away, there's 500 whisperers. And this guy says, let me out of this damn cell, and I will help you fight those whisperers. What are you going to do? You're going to let him out and trust him to fight? Or are you going to take your chances? That's a question I have for everybody. I'll read a few of your comments. Ziglet, you don't know. You can trust him. It's a leap of faith. And I think most are going to take their chances that Negan is going to be loyal. All right, so now I have a follow-up question. And this is going to be a much, much tougher question. But it's going to rely on two variables, which is going to make it easier. Now you're not Alexandria Survivor A. Now you're Daryl Dixon. And see how well you know the character, or see how well the writers think that we know the characters. You're Daryl. Don't answer yet. Don't answer yet. I got to give you the scenario. So you're Daryl, and there's, 100 or so of you. But there's women, children. We say women and children. Like, that's kind of, I guess, old school and possibly even sexist at this point. There's children, because the women can probably fight better than most of the men on the show. But you probably can't protect all of the children. I mean, you're Daryl. And you need everybody you can possibly get. As Daryl Dixon, you've got 500 whispers half a mile away, and they're coming at you. Same situation. You see Negan over there, you know his history, and he says, let me out, let me get the bat, and let's go out and do this thing together. As Daryl, do you unlock the cage? Do you fight with him side by side? It's tough, right? So less people jumped on this one and said yes right away. But there's still a good majority of people saying, I think if Daryl starts to look at the group and gets in that moment where he realizes he might not be able to protect everybody, it's a maybe. You know what? I'll give you a maybe on that. But I have to change it just a little bit until I get to that point where, as Daryl, you're probably going to say yes. Villar says Daryl probably knows they will kill him, so lets him out. So now we've got to paint a little bit of the backstory. So before this happened, let's say you had just that conversation with Rick. And Rick assured you that Negan was changed and it was important to give him another chance. I'm not saying Rick would do that. I'm just kind of hyping it up a little bit more. And at the same time, you know this group of whispers that are 500 people, you know that they have been known to capture some of yours and decapitate. And in fact, they've already done it to several people. Jesus is missing. Jesus has been killed. Let's say Ezekiel has been missing. So Ezekiel's been killed, and whoever. We throw a third person in there, Henry. So Henry, Ezekiel, and Jesus are all dead via whisper. So now they're more evil. There's some hatred boiling. And you got to take out as many of them as you possibly can. You're going to let this guy just be a bystander and watch the whole thing, or you're going to let him out? And I do think that Negan will become an ally, but it's going to take all of these scenarios happening to get that full audience impact and that influence. We got a super chat. This is Andrea Ray. Kills was Negan the one in the trailer with the fire in the room? Someone trying to help Negan escape the cell. I do think so, Andrea. Now, at this point, a lot of our theories would be a counter argument to that because it'd have to be the right scenario for someone to try to kill Negan in the cell and then him to be put back in the cell and locked up. But I do feel like it's possibly even Daryl and Maggie. That just looked like, maybe it's too obvious of a clue, but when you see Daryl and Maggie walking down the street with a gas can, and then you see the gas poured and lighting on fire and it's going toward the concrete, and it looks to be a jail cell, it looks to be that same area, I do think that there is going to be an attempt on Negan, and I do think it's Daryl and Maggie. But you know what? I think that's a great question as well. Wasn't there a, I don't know. I might have read about this. I'm not sure if this is a law. Maybe it's a rumor. Maybe it's one of those kind of urban legend type of things. But wasn't there a law that says that, at one time, if someone had the death penalty and it didn't work, that you couldn't go back and do it? Like, you couldn't, keep trying it over and over again? I think it was like with an electric chair. Maybe I saw it in, the FBI museum or one of those things in Washington. But am I imagining that, or did that used to be a thing? I'm calling on some knowledge here. Okay, that is correct. All right, okay, I didn't think. I think it's changed. So think about that as a backdrop. I know it's different. But would it change your opinion? It's not double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is that you can't be convicted, retried for something that you were found innocent of. But yeah, the death penalty, I thought I saw that somewhere. So I know it's not exactly the same thing, but would it change your opinion if there was an attempt on Negan's life and they failed? Do you think that they should keep trying to kill him, or do you think at that point somebody else should say, enough of this? It can't happen. Maybe they attempt to kill Negan, Rick finds out, and Rick puts an end to it. And they don't attempt again. Just want to know kind of what your vibe with that is. Do they keep trying, or are we okay? All right. Just something I want you to think about. Also, we got a super chat. We got E. Beach says, not Daryl, but Carol releases him after the king dies. Eric, if the king doesn't die, that would mean Negan would be locked up for 5 years if Ezekiel doesn't die until after the second time skip. That's a long time. It may happen. We're going, we're basing a lot of these on the idea that Negan will be out before or at the time that Rick dies or leaves. But in jail for another 5 years without Rick around, maybe. Anything's possible. No. Shane Hudson is exactly right. There is no confirmation or spoiler information that Ezekiel dies. It's just a comic book thing, and we're just using that as a hypothetical. Exactly. See, Betty, that's kind of the point that I wanted to get to. Is out of respect for Rick, no attempt will happen to Negan. But I don't think that is the case why Rick is there or why Rick is alive. See, I would disagree with you. Now, if Rick is gone and there were unsuccessful attempts on Negan's life, and that was kind of like Rick's parting wish that people need to take care of my family, and look, I kept this person alive and he deserves another chance if we're going to develop a community. At that point, I think Negan would get all his stripes back. But I do think that there would be a debt to pay, that Negan would be obligated to carry on the legacy of Rick and the legacy of Carl. And that's why I think all of these, every episode is important. Because every episode, I think we're going to get just a little bit more of information. I mean, obviously we're going to get more information, but I mean, specific to this storyline, every episode, I think we're going to be able to look at the transformation of Negan. It's a big, The Walking Dead does something that, well, I don't think a lot of shows do it. They're moving two characters kind of at the same time, where they're consistently making one person turn evil and one person turn nice. And they do it a lot, and they do it very, very well. So they keep that balance of kind of good and evil. And right now, you've got Maggie, it's on the borderline of just going off the rails. I mean, she's so close to not being liked by a lot of people on the show. Whereas Negan's kind of been there and done that. Been there, I'm back, but there is that small piece that he's hanging on to, which is called his pride. And that's what comes out when he's with Rick. And I think that's where we're going to see a little bit of that, not really taunting him, but very direct with him. Because I think he feels he can talk to Rick however he wants to talk to Rick. But Negan definitely had a different conversation with Father G than he did with every other person on the show. And I'm still not saying that Father G is not the person to unlock the gate. You know, we talked about Michonne, but Father G could use his status as a representative, as a man of God, and definitely get in there to talk to Negan. And he could be the one to say, you know what? I believe everybody deserves a second chance, and unlock the gate. And maybe even do it as a test. Or he could unlock the gate and just tell Negan, wait for your opportunity to prove yourself. Karen, he could be. It could be naive. But I would say, of all the people that we've suggested, Father G probably makes the most sense. If he believes he's redeemed. Michonne is a voice of reason. Rick is not going to have that trust, even though Rick could see him in the bigger picture, a way to, to carry on Carl's legacy. But Father G, with everything he's been through, I could definitely see being the one. Exactly. Creepy, and say, who are you now? How would comic book fans that are hardcore comic fans that are fully current, have we ever heard Negan's real name? Okay. I would like to know, I guess, well, let me throw this out there. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if his first name's Negan, his last name's Negan, if Negan is just a nickname he picked up. I mean, if you never heard another name, then, it's just all speculation, right? So, Television audiences probably won't have a problem with this. Comic fans may have a problem with it. So I'm just going to ask everybody, because we're going to get a mix of this. How would you feel if Father G did exactly that and said, "Who are you now?" And he said, Ted Thompson, whatever. And he just gave like a name, like a real name. Deviate too far away from the comics for the comic fans? Would it show redemption to the television fans? Would that be something that would be a way to mix it up, change the story a little bit? Just something that I think it would be a shocker. I think it would be a wake-up call, and it would kind of make its way toward redemption. Don't underestimate what we can learn in a small jail cell. I know we're so focused on the action and the logs and Aaron and Daryl's fight, but and Maggie's story. But of all the things that are going to happen this season, with the exception of Rick, number one on my list is whether Rick dies or leaves. That's number one. But I have to be perfectly honest with everybody here. Number two on my list of things that I am most looking forward to finding out this season is about Negan. I am so just anxious to see what the conversations are like, what the mental state is, where his character is going to go. Because I have never liked him. And if they can write a story that gets me just so in tune to see what's going to be next, his story, whether I continue to dislike him or whether I warm up to him, what is discussed when he's in that jail cell is going to be one of the most important storylines for me. Because I've just been so anti-Negan for so long. And I think what we'll do, we may even do this on Sunday before we do the countdown. I'll keep you guys posted. But we will talk about some of the things storylines that we're most looking forward to. And I just sort of want to plant that seed with you as well. I'm sure how the Rick storyline is going to play out is going to be paramount. But there's a few other things. The helicopter's definitely mentioned. So what we'll do is we'll do a top 5, maybe even a top 10, and just talk about how some things could play out. So we have hit 68 minutes, and a lot of Daryl chat tonight, a lot of Negan chat, how the two could possibly merge together. You'll see some method to this madness, because the hardest sell on the TV show is going to be Daryl. Daryl has probably been the most abused of anybody by Negan. Maggie for a different reason, because of being there at the lineup and also seeing Glenn. But Daryl's has had a carryover effect. Daryl was not only there, Daryl felt the guilt from Glenn. Daryl's been tortured. So of all the people there, I think he's the one that when he warms up to Negan, the rest of us pretty much have to follow suit, because, we weren't in that jail cell listening to Easy Street, but yeah, he was. So we will develop this a little bit more. Probably sometime next week, we're going to continue the storyline. I want to thank everybody for being here. Really awesome week of interaction. You guys are absolutely amazing. Good thoughts, good predictions, good theories. There'll be no stream tomorrow night. And there may be a stream on Saturday. I know last Saturday we didn't do a live stream, but actually posted a video that is making its ways around. So a lot of people are involved, commenting on that. If we don't do a live stream Friday or Saturday, you can guarantee we will be back in full effect on Sunday doing our countdown, doing our reaction video. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. It has been an awesome week. Love hanging out with you guys every night. Give this video a thumbs up because there's a whole lot of people. And I just want to know, I mean, you guys give us a thumbs up if we're on the same side, right? Are we on the same side, Rick? Well, you tell me. So I should say, you guys tell me if we're on the same side. Give this video a thumbs up. If we're not on the same side, give it a thumbs down. Do what you need to do, but one way or another, you got to make a choice. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Got one more super chat. Shane Hudson said, just going to leave this here? Yeah, leave it there, Shane. Thank you. Appreciate that super chat and everything that you guys do. Want to start out, if you're watching the playback, this is the closing credits, so all we're going to do is just do a bunch of shout-outs and tell everybody how awesome they are for being here. You guys are all awesome. We'll start out with the Patreons in the top left-hand corner. Thanks for everything that you guys do. Appreciate your support, your financial support, and appreciate your insight. Sometimes we ask theories, help with videos. We do a couple surveys on there, and appreciate all the interaction from each one of the patrons earlier today. Also, you can see the sponsors over on the far right. You can see their name highlighted in green, and also my moderators, Emmy, Steph, Tommy, and Kells. Awesome group. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do each and every day, keeping these streams in line. And everybody else is still here. Give me a quick 999 so we can give a whole bunch of shout-outs. DDA Ohio, Viola McGowan, E-Beach, Bumblebee Brown, have a good night. Michelle M., Tommy V., Crystal the Singer Chick, Gore, Sergeant Chosen One, Shane Yutzy, David Marsh, Old Soul, Beast Bear, iRock 6, Joseph Salazar, David Marsh, Rebecca Briggs, it's scrolling fast, Logan 5, Coma Drug, Sam B., Lisa Khaleesi, Ziglet, Lakeisha Faison, Ron Burgundy Moore, DeVay Dolly, thank you so much. Shane Hudson, Kim Ames, Sherry Bentley, John McCullough, Lamar Lanham. Good stuff tonight, Lamar. Some really good thoughts. I didn't get to call all of them out, but I saw a few of your posts there. Edwin Gonzalez, Chris Riddle, Walani. Thank you so much, Walani. Hippo in the house. What's up? Gamma, Jim G, Sorry, Betty Jackson. Almost called you Becky. I kind of did, and then I caught myself. Wilson, DJ Dimestott, Samantha Coombs, Casey F. Have a good night, Gina Crockett. Deborah Cox, thank you. Star Guitar Goddess. Just hanging around, waiting for a few more people. Blood Eagle, Uncle Creepy, Laura Butler, Geese74. Thanks so much, Kim Ames. Shelton Arthur. Vincent Starks. And by the way, if there's not a stream on, there won't be one Friday. Probably won't be one on Saturday. But if there is not one on Saturday, there will likely be a video posted. So just keep an eye on the channel. I may do a shorter video just to get some thoughts out there as well. Because what I have been doing occasionally is taking some of our live stream, just some of the data, and compiling it, putting it in a video, the parts that make the most sense. And we've gotten some really good responses from some of those theories. We got people asking a couple questions. So now we've done some shout outs, and I don't want to do this in the middle of the video because I don't want to make it look like it's just over promoting. But I mean, obviously there are ways to support the channel. So let me kind of walk through this at the end of this video if you guys got a couple seconds. If not, thank you for being here, and I will see you on Sunday. But the people that are interested in sponsorship, there's really a couple different ways. There's a link down below. Patreon is a third-party site. And the Patreon site, it gives you a little bit more insight. There's a lot of connection. You'll be included in the videos, in the credits of any video that I upload. And also, if vacation pics, all those things, people just kind of want to see a little bit more and contribute to the channel. And there's some really good goals on there of what we do with the money that we raise, whether it's advertising the channel or helping out different causes. The sponsorship is through the YouTube site, and that's the one where you get the emojis. And what you have to do is, if you watch this video through through YouTube Gaming, at the bottom of it, there's a membership button or a sponsor button, and you basically sign up that way, and that gives you the green highlight and also the custom emojis. And the more people if people sign up for sponsors, I can actually upload more emojis. What YouTube does is it gives you a few emojis if you have a few sponsors, but if you get up to like 15, 20, 30 sponsors, then you can upload more. It's kind of like they incentivize the creator in order to talk about it a little bit more. But I mean, it's there. If you guys are interested, just want to let you know what it's all about. The Patreon site is overall better. I mean, they're both, it's whatever people want to do. I mean, I don't want to have anybody on the hook or make anybody feel it. It's just, there are differences. The Patreon site is probably better overall because we know YouTube. I mean, YouTube's a good company, but YouTube takes a big cut of whatever we do, and the videos, they take a big cut of the advertising revenue. I mean, that's kind of but it's the nature of it. I wouldn't trade it. It's not, I'm not here to decide what's fair and what's not fair. And I definitely don't want to talk poorly about a company that is supporting me. And I think YouTube is a good vehicle in order to talk to people and to get your ideas and your streams and everything out there. Yeah, and thank you so much, Ziglet. We sent out that welcome as well. Crystal, they are both perfectly fine. One of the things that we do with the Patreon, and you guys have probably seen some of the growth, is we have different tier structures. So with those tier structures, a certain amount of the revenue is going toward advertising the channel or advertising videos. And we've seen a huge spike over the last several months as we started to promote the videos a little bit more, either if they're promoted through Facebook or they're promoted through YouTube advertising where it'll pop up in their feed or do different things. And it's really helped us create a bigger network. And you've seen some of that where the Facebook fan page has grown, the subscribers have grown, and our live streams, the interactions have grown. So it's whether you're on Patreon, whether you're a sponsor, or whether you're here every night and you're participating, getting involved, I appreciate everything that you guys do. It is a IROC, I will tell you, and if you guys are still here, these are the closing credits or outtakes. YouTube is a lot of work. It's not a lot of work to do a video. It's a lot of work to get your videos and to get them in a forum to where people participate and they get involved in them. I will tell you, I'm extremely lucky, and the way this channel has materialized, I'm lucky to interact with each and every one of you, because there are videos who, people will do a video and it goes viral, and it just may be something that gets out there and gets a couple 100,000 views, and then they put up a video, and then the video might get 50 views. The algorithms that YouTube uses, it's very hard to get until you get to a certain establishment or you get a niche. And my niche was gaming, and it was gaming tutorials and getting involved. And I was lucky enough to get with a couple companies, with Dawn of Titans, with Empires and Allies, where they would sponsor some videos, and I think the first video that I did that got over 100,000 views was probably Empires and Allies, how to attack like a pro, and it was setting up different bases. And then Dawn of Titans, the same thing. So there's several gaming videos that went viral, and that's where just sort of happened. And we could probably do this on a random thing stream to talk about kind of the history of the channel. But there's a lot of good content out there, unfortunately, because of the size of YouTube, that there's really, really good creators, and not everybody is going to get noticed, and not everybody's going to have that opportunity. But I don't know how many videos that we put together, probably 4,000 videos so far. So in 3 years, that's quite a bit of videos, and a lot, and certainly a lot of live streams. But that is a little bit of the overview. Once again, we ran into a little bit of overtime. I appreciate all of you guys hanging out. Let's get back together and do this again. Look for a video probably on Saturday, and then we'll get back to our live streams. Live streams is definitely our niche now, because just the interaction. It's real time, and it's very personable. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night, and I will see you all within the next couple days. Peace.